Sing Alleluia to the Lord. Sing Alleluia to the Lord. Sing Alleluia. Sing Alleluia. Sing Alleluia to the Lord. This is the day the Lord has made. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us be glad in it. Let us rejoice in it. Sing Alleluia to the Lord. We are the people of God. We are the people of God. Care for each other, love one another. We are the people of God. Sing Alleluia to the Lord. Good morning. My name is John Martis. I'm a follower of Jesus of Nazareth and a member of First Congregational United Church of Christ. And on behalf of our whole church family, I want to welcome you to this Sunday's service where, as we like to say, no matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. Here's some of the announcements we have this Sunday. First of all, I'd like to remind everybody that every Wednesday evening between 6:30 and 7:30, you are welcome to join us on Zoom for an hour of conversation, news, catching up, virtual hugs, just chatting. You can find the link in this Sunday's Congregational Tidings, which you either receive by mail or receive by email. Next Sunday, we'll be hearing from Cliff Hynum on July 19th. He is always worth listening to, and if we're very lucky, he may play us also. So let's just see what else we have. There's a Sunday morning discussion group that is gathering at 9:30 via Zoom, starting a new book entitled A Bigger Table, which is available wherever you buy your books. And if you're interested in joining the group, contact Evie Wack, and the contact information is also in the bulletin. Nicaragua shoeboxes. We have been collecting material to send to the children of Chinandega in Nicaragua for well over 20 years. And today, this year, is no different, except that we're not going shopping. We're not collecting the clothing and the other items that go in the shoeboxes. Donations, however, are very welcome, and again, information, donate a check or online through our website at www.firstcongucc.org. And let's see. Our treasurer says we're doing okay, but don't slack off. The bad news is that it's raining as I am recording this, and we have leaks in our church. I'm very unhappy about that, but fortunately we have time and resources to take care of such things. Again, thank you for joining us this Sunday, and we hope to hear and see from you every Sunday. Please make any comments and sign in on on the comment page on your YouTube or Facebook venue. And if you have anything that you'd like to add to what I'm going to share in my sermon, critically or positively, either way, please use the comments for that as well. Just one note before we continue with our service. One of the great things about getting to do the Sunday worship service is that you get to pick the hymns. So the 3 hymns that we are singing today all come from the red hymnal. I first heard them and learned to love them when I was 15, shortly after the red hymnal was introduced. And I am sorry to say that in the last 50 years, I haven't ever heard them sung in church again. So what we're doing today is making up for that lack. I hope that you love them as much as I do. Unfortunately, you will find that they're not familiar. They're not hard to sing, but you haven't heard them before. So I've asked Luke to put together a group to help us along. And that's all. Thank you for joining us. Hear, O Israel, hear, O Israel, the Lord your God, our God, is one God. You shall love the Lord with all your heart. You shall love the Lord with all your mind, with all your strength, with all your soul. You shall love the Lord with all your heart and soul. You shall love the Lord with all your heart and soul. Hear, O Israel, hear, O Israel, you shall love your neighbor as you love yourself, for your neighbor is a child of God, enemy or friend, still the child of God. Brothers and sisters of one Father, you shall love the Lord as you love yourself. You shall love the Lord as you love yourself. Hear, O Israel, hear, O Israel, what does the Lord require of you, but to have mercy in all you say and do, to act with compassion to everyone, walk humbly with God, loving your neighbor, justly deal with every child of God, justly deal with every child of God. Hear, O Israel, hear, O Israel.
Worship rightly is to love each other, each smile a hymn, each kindly deed a prayer. Follow with reverent steps thy great example of him whose holy work was doing good. So shall all wide earth seem our Father's temple, each loving life a song of gratitude. Then shall all shackles fall, the stormy clangor of wild horn music o'er the earth shall cease. Love shall tread out the baleful fire of anger, and in its ashes plant a tree of peace.
This is the time set aside in our service for what we call joys and concerns. As a congregation, we pray about the concerns, share the sorrow and the anxiety and the pain of the concerns, and we share the joy and the general happiness of the joys. So this morning, what we have for concerns, there are several people who are having some health issues. Dick Grimm's hip surgery is scheduled for July 13th, Monday. He says he's ready for it to be over. Waiting for surgery is tough, and wanting the pain to be gone makes it harder. And of course, anyone who's had hip replacement knows that the pain doesn't entirely go away right away. There's more to come, so our thoughts and our prayers are with Dick. Lynette Depke continues her slower than hoped for recovery from her back surgery, but she is recovering. Zoe Lennox is still counting the day before she can get to use her foot again. It is summer. Softball or volleyball or other things like that, so it's not as bad as it could be. And Richard Cook will be going to see to more doctor appointments to determine the reason for his double vision. Richard has had some fairly serious health issues in the last few weeks. For joys, I have a couple of joys, even though we have leaks here at the church. The new roof repairs that we just completed in our bell tower and in our south tower aren't leaking. So all of the plaster work that we had done is still dry, and I am really happy about that. There's a wonderful joy from Craig Driver that was listed in the tidings. I'm going, instead of reading it, I'm going to ask you to look. It's a really feel-good story about his two grandsons in Arizona. And I know that you all have joys. I want you to think right now, before we pray, of one particular thing that you can hold up, a joy, something good that happened to you today, that happened to you this week, some joy that you're looking forward to. Call it by name, think about it. Let that joy, that anticipation pervade your soul as we pray. And if you would like to share it with us so that we too can be joyful, that's what your comment sections are for. Let us pray. Dear Lord, Creator God, we bring to you today our fears and concerns, our feeling of family with those of our church family that are ill or are awaiting surgery. Please be with Dick Grimm and Lynette Depke and Zoe Lennox and Richard Cook and all those in our church family and beyond that aren't feeling the greatest, who are ill, who are facing surgery, or who are facing loss, economic pain. The world is a difficult, scary, strange place today. Help us to remember that you are the Lord. Help us to remember that put our trust in you and to wait for the Lord. Good morning. This is officially known as the children's lesson, but you know, if you're not a child, please don't turn this off or go get a snack. I'd like to talk to everybody. One of the things that we all have to deal with these days is the fact that we can't do the things that we normally do that make us really, really happy. We can't be with our friends. We can't play with our friends. We can't go to school. Things are difficult. You get feeling cooped up with all the same people. You want something new. It's hard. We sometimes have to really think about how we're going to get back to joy, to happiness, just to feeling great. Here's an idea. The Bible tells us that God made all the heavens and all the earth and everything that's in it, including people, and when he was done, he said, "That's good." And he was very happy. We can't be exactly like God. We can't create heavens and earth and people and things like that, but we can create things. We can make things, and sometimes I find that when we make things, it makes us happy. We say, "That's good." And we feel some of the same kinds of joy that God felt when he made the world. Here's some examples. I'm a gardener. I make a garden every summer, and here's some of the things that I make. I didn't make it, with the help of God. I grew this purple prairie coneflower. It's called purple, but it's really pink. My 4-year-old great-granddaughter, May Wynn, went out into the garden and went straight for these. She didn't like the red flowers, or the yellow flowers, or the orange flowers, or the white flowers, or the blue flowers. She only liked this one because it's pink. And she says, "And the bees drink them." I have all kinds of flowers, and I really like them. They make me so happy when I go outside or look out the window. This, I know it looks like some kind of a purple baseball, but it's a kohlrabi. It's kind of like a cross between an apple and a turnip. And it's kind of sweet inside, and it's really good in slaw, like coleslaw. I like to grate it with some apple and use a little lime and mint in the sauce. It's really delicious. It makes me so happy. I grew this in my garden, and then I get to eat it, and it's so good. My wife, Barbara, makes pies. I was going to bring a pie to show you, but she wouldn't let me because she was sure that my friend Luke and I would eat it all before we got to this part. But in any case, she makes pies, and she not only makes herself happy, she makes me happy too. And then, you know, we have a lot of friends here at the church, and you may not know them, but they're your friend, and you know what they do, because every Sunday when we're together here, one of them puts out all kinds of delicious cookies and bars and snacks and fruit for our coffee hour, cookie time after church. They're really good at what they do. Let's see, what are some of their names? Bonnie, Nancy, Liz, Joanne. There's a whole bunch of them, and they all are really good cooks. They make things that are wonderful, and they love to see us eat them and say, this is so good, because it makes them happy, because they made something. One of my daughters, Becca, is a fabric artist, and she sews masks for a hobby. She made this one. It has flowers on this side and peppers on this side. And I'm sure it makes me look very handsome when I wear it. What do you think? I'm so happy that she made this for me, and she gets very, very happy because people love these masks. They need these masks, and she makes pretty ones. Another daughter, Sarah, makes face shields out of plastic that she builds on her 3D printers. And she gives them to people at her local hospital and her local vet clinic where she lives. My third daughter, Katie, you know what she makes? It makes her happy and everybody else happy. She makes friends. She has friends all over the world. And she's in contact with them all the time through Facebook and texting and phone calls. She can't go see them anymore, but they're still her friends. That's really special. Well, you guys, all of you, from the old all the way down to the very young, can be like that too. You can make things, you can create things, and you can feel that same joy that we feel and that God felt. Here's some suggestions. Art is always useful. It makes you feel better when you make it, and it makes other people feel better when they see it. So, if all you can do is scribble with a crayon, that's a good way to start. If you're up to fancy watercolors, keep on painting. Maybe you like to make cookies too. If you're a kid, there's nothing that's more fun than making cookies and then eating them. Of course, you have to have an adult to help you with that, but work on it. The thing that Luke and I like to do is sing. I sing every day. Sometimes I don't sing very well. Sometimes I don't remember the words to my song, but I love to sing. And I know that there's nothing little kids like to do better than sing. I know that adults also like to sing, although they don't like to sing in public so much. But you've always got your shower. That's what it's for. You thought it was for getting clean, but no, it's for singing and making a joyful noise unto the Lord. So, that's all for today. I want you to go out and make something, make yourself happy, make people happy, just like God was happy when He made the world. Today's Old Testament reading is from Isaiah chapter 44, verses 1 through 8. The Lord says, "Listen now, Israel, my servant, my chosen people, the descendants of Jacob. I am the Lord who created you. From the time you were born, I have helped you. Do not be afraid. You are my servant, my chosen people, whom I love. I will give water to the thirsty land and make streams flow on the dry ground. I will pour out my spirit on your children and my blessing on your descendants. They will thrive like well-watered grass, like willows by streams of running water. One by one, people will say, I am the Lord's. They will come to join the people of Israel. They each will mark the name of the Lord on their arms and call themselves one of God's people. The Lord who rules and protects Israel, the Lord Almighty, has this to say. I am the first, the last, the only God. There is no other God but me. Could anyone else have done what I did? Who could have predicted all that would happen from the very beginning to the end of time? Do not be afraid, my people. You know that from ancient times until now, I have predicted all that would happen, and you are my witnesses. Is there any other God? Is there some powerful God I never heard of? I am the only God.
God is working his purpose out as year succeeds to year. God is working his purpose out, and the time is drawing near. Nearer and nearer draws the time that shall surely be, when the earth shall be filled with the glory of God as the waters cover the sea. From utmost east to utmost west, where'er man's foot hath trod, by the mouth of many messengers goes forth the voice of God. Give ear to me, ye continents, ye isles, give ear to me, that the earth may be filled with the glory of God as the waters cover the sea. March we forth in the strength of God, with the banner Christ unfurled, that the light of the glorious gospel of truth may shine throughout the world. Fight we the fight with sorrow and sin to set their captives free, that the earth may be filled with the glory of God as the waters cover the sea. All we can do is nothing worth unless God blesses the deed. Vainly we hope for the harvest tide till God gives life to the seed. Yet nearer and nearer draws the time that shall surely be, when the earth shall be filled with the glory of God as the waters cover the sea.
Our New Testament reading comes from Revelations 21, verses 1 through 8. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. The first heaven and the first earth disappeared, and the sea vanished. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared and ready, like a bride dressed to meet her husband. I heard a loud voice speaking from the throne. Now God's home is with people. He will live with them, and they shall be his people. God himself will be with them, and he will be their God. He will wipe away all tears from their eyes. There will be no more death, no more grief or crying or pain. The old things have disappeared. Then the one who sits on the throne said, "And now I shall make all things new." He also said to me, "Write this, because these words are true and can be trusted." And he said, "It is done. I am the first and the last, the beginning and the end. To anyone who is thirsty, I will give the right to drink from the spring of the water of life, without paying for it. Those who win the victory will receive this from me. I will be their God, and they will be my children." One of the things that I like to call myself is a practical theologian. You might think that's arrogant. I have no training in theology except going to church every Sunday for the last 70 years. But I like to think that we all are theologians, that we all have a responsibility, if we are at all spiritual or religious, to think about our lives and to think about the Bible and think about how those two things interact. And every once in a while I get something comes out of the air, out of what I'm reading or seeing or hearing, that makes me wonder. And I start thinking about what the Bible say about this, and often I find that the Bible isn't as specific as I would like it to be. Recent sermons have been about fear, and one of the most common phrases in the Bible is "don't be afraid," "fear not," but it doesn't ever tell you what to do not to be afraid. Anger is another topic. Today, I began thinking about kind of something that I'm feeling in the zeitgeist. What is the purpose of all the terrible things that are happening to us? A plague, COVID-19, economic hardship, an impending depression, climate change, wildfires, terrible storms. What does it all mean? What is God's purpose? Well, of course, that made me think of the hymn we just sang, "God is working His purpose out." I love that hymn. I first heard it when I was 15, and the red book that we sing out of, the Pilgrim Hymnal, was first published. And the book that I was reading from in my father's church was brand new. My father is a musician, and so he liked to find stirring hymns that fit his sermon titles, and one of them was "God is working His purpose out." I was so enamored of that. It had stirring imagery and powerful music, and I loved it. I haven't heard it for the last 50 years or more, but I thought we ought to put it in today's service so that you could all feel what I felt, hear what I heard, but I'm going to spoil it now. Because the first thing that I do now is move past the music and the poetry and say, well, what does it all mean? What is God's purpose that He's working out? These days you can look up things like "what is God's purpose" on Google or even ask Alexa, and you'll hear an answer or several. In this case, I used Google and I read several. The consensus seems to be that God's end game is to bring all creation into union with Himself. The metaphor that John the Revelator used was the shining city, the new Jerusalem, where there's no night nor need nor pain, where the tears shall be wiped from every eye. And I've got nothing to say about that. I don't know if that sounds good to me, but that doesn't help me understand God's purpose today. The more I think about it, though, the more I think that I'm never going to understand God's purpose, and neither is anyone else. God's ways are not our ways. God's thoughts are not our thoughts. A popular hymn has it, God works in mysterious ways, his wonders to perform. And maybe that isn't important for me or you or anyone to know God's ultimate purpose. After all, God thinks in eternal time. We can't even imagine geologic time. When the Rocky Mountains were raised, or when the dinosaurs roamed the earth. Glacial speed is slow to us, but it may be fast to God. We don't have the capacity to understand a being who thinks in eternal time, and that's okay. We don't need to. What we need to do is think about our response. What is our purpose as Christians in a time of COVID? And I always come back to first principles. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one God, you shall have no other gods before me. You shall love the Lord with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your soul, and all your strength, and your neighbor as yourself. What does the Lord require of you? But that you do justice, show kindness, love your neighbor as yourself. That's where we need to start. But a practical theologian doesn't stop there. Because, these are all about love, and things that you do, not things that you feel. They're actions. And we don't have any really concrete ways to think about that, reading the scriptures, other than don't oppress the poor, take care of widows and orphans, be hospitable to foreigners in our land. Those are very specific things that are repeated over and over in the Old Testament and the New. But I think there's more that we can do. So here's kind of how I'm thinking about it. Let's do a thought experiment, if we will. Let's imagine a group of friends, maybe church friends, who in a time of COVID are meeting on a regular basis on Zoom to just hang out, be with each other. Let's say it's Wednesday night. That's traditional for church groups. And let's imagine that they began to think about ways that they could still be engaged and still follow the prime directives in our user's manual that I just mentioned, and still be socially distant, still be safe. Well, the first thing they decided was that, if you really love the Lord and you want to continue to grow spiritually, that you really need to attend a worship service of some kind every Sunday. Of course, most churches these days are offering ways to do that. They also agreed that they should probably continue to meet, and they committed to this, to meet every Wednesday on their Zoom meeting so that they could report on the ways that they had found to improve their spirituality. They had all kinds of ideas. One lady liked to take a walk. She walked nearly every day that the weather was clement, but she always listened to a podcast on her earphones. But she had read on Facebook about a Japanese concept called shunriko, which means forest bathing, which means absorbing whatever spiritual benefit there is in the natural world. So she decided she was going to try that. She left her earphones and her podcast at home, and when she went on her walk, she tried to focus on the natural world and not the built world. She tried to recognize individual trees and to learn their characteristics, to listen to the bird song, look for butterflies, and appreciate the clover and the grass and how sweet it smells. Just not empty her mind, really, but to focus on the natural world. She reported that, she said, I don't know that I necessarily feel closer to God, but I feel better. There's something good that happens when I do this. She recommended it to others, and others began to try it. And I'm reminded at this point of something that Mitch Meacham said at his sermon, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, about godly persistence, about keep working, keep trying, keep chipping away until you achieve success and meet your goal, your purpose. Well, I'm not sure that practicing the presence of God, and a phrase that I like to use, is a purpose that is up to you to achieve, but I think the key part is practice. Presence of God is with us all the time. We need to practice as often as we can so that we can feel that presence. Other people said, okay, well, I can't go for a walk, or I certainly can't do it every day, but I can go outside every day. And they committed to doing that. They would go outside for some time, even if it was only for a few minutes in the heat of the summer or the cold of the winter, even in the rain. So, they had umbrellas. They said, outside every day, and I will keep practicing that. And when I go outside, I'll focus on the natural world and not the built world, and we'll see how that works. One of the things that they were concerned about was all the negative news and the negative feelings that are just constantly surrounding us. And one of the people, let's call her Evie, said, well, one of the things I do is make a list of all the things that I'm grateful for. And it's especially important for me to do that when I'm feeling down in the dumps. And so they said, well, that's a good idea. That's pretty easy to do. But, it's kind of hard to start a new habit, set a new time to do things. So one fellow said, I know. I like to mow the lawn. I mow my lawn once a week, whether it needs it or not, just because I like to. So I'm going to use the time that I mow my lawn to make my list, to memorize my list of things that I'm grateful for, and thank God for all the things on that list. Somebody else said, well, that's a good idea. You know what I like to do? This may sound crazy, but I like to do the dishes. I don't have to think about it very hard, and I just let my mind drift. That's something that I could do when I'm doing the dishes. Somebody else said, well, I hate to put away clothes. Pull it out of the dryer, take everything out, fold it up, put it in the right place, and try and remember, who goes to which garment and how they especially like it to be placed in their drawers. But I've done it so much now, I don't really have to think about it very much. I can make my gratitude list, the list of the things that I'm thankful for, while I'm putting away clothes, and I have to do that several times a week. And one by one, the people in the group began to think, yes, there's a time that I already set aside for something that I could instead focus on my gratitude list. Well, once again, by persistence, by keeping doing it week after week, their lists began to grow. And they had to drop some of the things off the list because they were always on the list, and they had to make room for new things on their list. Did they get closer to God? I don't know. They weren't sure either, but they were certainly more spiritually aware of how good life was, how good the gift was that they were given. So they think, well, okay, we can't greet each other every Sunday like we're used to. We can't get together and share news and things in person anymore, and we all miss that. But what can we do? Not everybody wants to be in our Zoom meeting. Not everybody has a computer. Not everybody can figure out how to unmute or all of the things that you have to do to really be successful in a Zoom meeting. What can we do to keep in contact with all those other people? And one person picked up church directory. Every church has one. This particular one's pretty nice. It has a lot of pictures in it. So if you can't remember somebody's name, you can use their face. If you can't remember their face, you've got their name. Said, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm not any good at Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff. But I still can use the phone. Been doing it for all my life, which has been a very long time. I'm just going to call people. I'm going to pick 12 people from this directory. Not just shut-ins, just 12 people. And maybe one of them will be a little kid. And I'm going to call each of those people every week. And all I'm going to do is, hi, this is John. How you doing? Remember me from church? We miss you. I miss being with people. What's up? And just have a conversation. Just be in touch. Be the voice, not the voice of God, but the voice of people that we're missing. Everybody thought, well, that's good. Somebody said, well, I'm a genius at Twitter. I do Twitter all the time. And so I'm going to do that 12. I'm going to do it on Twitter. I'm going to try and pick 12 people that I can get to Twitter. And it's not a big, heavy obligation because, Twitter is short. We can just have a little conversation that way. And other people say, well, I don't do that, but I can text. And we have the email addresses for most people in our directory. I'll do that. Other people, let's call one of them John, said, my thumbs are way too big for any of this Twitter and texting stuff. But, as much as I don't do it, I do know how to do email. Maybe I'll do email. Somebody else said, well, I don't do any of that stuff, but I can send postcards. Postcards are easy. They began to do that. Pretty soon, the family feeling of being in a church family started to come back because people were attached. They couldn't eat anymore, which is together, which is an important part of church life, but they could hear from one another. They could feel connected to one another. And one fellow said, you know, I have a mentee. I'm a mentor for a junior high kid. And it's really been tough since we can't meet anymore. He keeps losing his phone charger or his phone. We just don't seem to connect. We can't get together. I said, but you know what? I'm going to go down to the post office and buy a packet of 10 prepaid postcards and put it in an envelope, and I'm going to send him the envelope with a note that says, every week, if you will send me one of these with just a little note about what was the best thing that happened to you this week, I'll send you back one with a joke. So he did that, and the kid played along. You know, this is novel, this isn't new, he was bored. He said something to the effect, well, I found my charger cord, sent it back, and he was sent a joke in return that, you know, stupid dad joke. It's something like, knock knock, who's there? Boo, boo hoo. See, I made you cry. Which, you know, I agree, that's pretty lame. And got a response back from the kid saying, that's the worst joke I ever heard. I'm not going to do this if you don't come up with better jokes. The reply was, wait a minute. The deal was, you were going to tell me something good that happened instead of complaining. So he had to send a postcard saying what good had happened to him that day, and his grandma made his favorite dessert, something like that. And he got another joke. You know, that's actually the way to connect with a surly middle school kid, is just keep telling them terrible jokes. And it was working. And other people said, well, you know, I can do that too. Some people can't go outside. They you know, for various physical and medical reasons, they can't go outside. They can't do what we're doing. So I can send postcards or pictures in an envelope of great outdoor scenes. Maybe that'll make them feel better. One by one, they began to come up with new ideas to make connections and to enhance the lives of other people, in the hopes that maybe that would make them more spiritual people, closer to God. Maybe that would mean that they were doing what Micah said. The Lord has told you what is good, to do justice, to show mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Or as I like to say, in humility, to practice the presence of God. The justice part, well, none of them felt like they really wanted to be part of mass protests and the Black Lives Matter thing that was going on. But that didn't mean that they didn't support the idea of racial justice. So one guy knew a policeman who introduced him to his police chief, and he was able to get a copy of the local town's use of force policy. Another person was able to do something similar, obtain the statistics that everybody's been collecting in police force work for some years now in this area, the racial data on arrests and stops and calls for service and all of the other things that police do. Somebody else talked to the mayor about what he thought the first step towards improving racial justice in the local area was. Someone else was involved with real estate and thought, well, let me see if I can find out something about housing inequities and it's just what part of the system is keeping people from getting the housing that they need. Why certain classes of people, not just racial, but economic classes, are always forced into particular areas. You know, nobody thought that collecting this data was necessarily going to lead to improved justice. Not right away. It was more of a reconnaissance. We need to know more, and when we know more, we'll be able to do more. So this is an imaginary group. This is an imaginary plan that I've outlined. But all of the things that they talked about, the ideas that they had, they got from each other. They shared the results of their experiments, and some of them never took off. I didn't share those. Others were popular, and everybody thought they wanted to do something to add to the richness of their group's spiritual life. You can do that. It doesn't have to be all by yourself. You don't have to be a monk in a cell. You could be part of a living group that does things like send postcards or bathe in the forest or go outside every day, collect data about racial justice. You can do those things. I don't know what things you would like to do. What stuff comes to your mind. That's what the comment section is for that I talked about earlier. Before you close out today, go to the comment section. If you've got an idea that you'd like to share with everybody, please put it down. Thank you very much. Please join me in prayer. Creator God, God of all that is, God of plague, God of healing, God of storm, God of the gentle wind and the gentle rain, be with us today, we pray. Help us to come up with practical, demonstrable ways to practice your presence, to continually think about how much we love the Lord, how much we love our neighbor, how much we love each other, to think about all of the good things that are in our lives because we are God's children. Now join me in praying the prayer that Jesus taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the power and the kingdom and the glory forever.
mercies of old. Everlasting light shines o'er it, wondrous tales of it are told. Only righteous men and women dwell within its gleaming wall. Wrong is banished from its border, justice reigns supreme o'er all. We are builders of that city, all our joys and all our groans, help to rear its shining ramparts. All our lives are building stones, whether humble or exalted, all are called to task divine. All must aid alike to carry forward one sublime design. And the work that we have builded, oft with bleeding hands and tears, oft in error, oft in anguish, will not perish with our years. It will live and shine transfigured in the final reign of right. It will pass into the splendors of the city of the light.
O Lord, Almighty God, give us thy blessing on this day. Let thy countenance shine down on us, and Spirit guide us on our way. Benedictus Domine. Amen. Amen.